He paid a 17-year-old girl for sex. That's not sex. That's a different word that I'm not going to use because we're on YouTube, but it starts with an R.
Even though his actions are terrible and are considered sins, he has the same ideology, so they can platform him because they can trust him to say the right things. And that's literally all they care about.
And this is the person that was nominated by Trump to be in his cabinet, and someone who just spoke at Turning Point USA's America Fest. These people do not care about children.
They value belief. They value ideology more than any action or anything someone does. I think it's those post-holiday. They're just tired. It's just Christmas is tiring, but I'm good.
Well, wake up, April. We're recording.
I know.
It's showtime.
Oh, hoo-hoo.
What's up, friends? Hi. Happy post-Christmas. It's Tim and April. The recap.
Hello.
Here we go. Roll
Woo.
the singer. Woo. Okay, good to see everyone. We have a lot to talk about, especially I know what we're all thinking about. I know what everyone's waiting for us to talk about, April. Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz. And we're going to get to all of that. So welcome in, friends. Great to be with you. Like I said, this is the New Evangelicals recap. We do this every Friday, although to be fair, not last Friday because I was traveling into the belly of the beast. I went to America Fest, the biggest gathering of Christian nationalists and right-wing politicians in America. We'll talk about that. But before that, let's get to some good news. April, it's good to see you. How was your Christmas?
It was good. I had family come in town from Texas, so my two brothers, and then sister-in-law, niece and nephew. So we were low-key. I literally stayed in my PJs all day.
Nice.
And didn't read the news or anything. Just disengaged and all the things.
Are you someone, let me ask you a question, speaking of not reading the news. The other day, I went back on Twitter to check just to see how things were going. And I immediately felt like I had to respond to every single piece of misinformation as I was scrolling through. I really don't think there's any benefit at this point, besides checking in to see what right-wing people and Christian nationalists are thinking. Besides that, there really is nothing beneficial on that site for me anymore.
It's terrible.
I'm debating getting off, to be honest with you.
I know. I still have my account. It's like, because in my head, I'm like, well, maybe one day Twitter won't be awful. And honestly, though, I don't know what good has come from Twitter. Like, I don't have the blue check. So even if I were to go viral on Twitter, it's not like I make anything. It's literally, the only thing I get out of Twitter is death threats. Like literally death threats. Like, I'm like, why am I still on this stupid app?
Woohoo!
Woo! Like, that is the word. Also, they're so extreme. Like, I literally will just like post the most mundane thing. Because I've been trying to post in the last year, try to just do some things on there that aren't politically charged, because you just get the worst responses ever. But then I'll just post something that's like, oh my gosh, this pizza's so good. And they're like, that's because you're a blah, 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 beep, beep, beep. Like, and just, I didn't cuss there. I went beep, beep, beep instead. But they literally just say like the worst things. And gosh, it's like, oh my gosh, it's not that serious. Calm down. I don't know if they're all bots or if they're all just that angry.
I think they're just that angry. I mean, it's clear to me watching. I hopped on Twitter 3 years ago, I guess, and watching the level of hate and vitriol, and also propaganda and conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism. Like, there's been so much of it. Anyway, I mean, I said let's talk about some good news a few minutes ago. Now we're talking about Twitter, but that was a random. Just I had to ask you this. I was going to ask you off air, but why not while we're recording? Because honestly, I don't think I'm going to stay. I think that ultimately the board of directors over TNE will say, get off Twitter. I'll make a personal account that's just my name to keep track of all those people to pull for content. I'm just going to move on, because there is, and what I find myself doing is I'll feel the need to respond and like clap back, and I know it won't do anything. I know it will do absolutely nothing. Then I'm like, why am I wasting my time? Why am I wasting my time just to have some troll account respond to me? I get ratioed. It's a waste of my time completely. So I think my New Year's resolution will be that.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I mean, I go on there too. Same thing. That's why I haven't been opening as much. And it's just so, it's triggering because it's not even just misinformation, but some people are just being so hateful, like Christians are.
Of course.
And it infuriates me because I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
well,
no, I feel that.
Go ahead.
Nothing. I was literally going to change the topic. So
well, me too. I was going to say my Christmas was good.
Good.
We spent time with my family. We always stay. So we have like a tradition where Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, we stay overnight at my parents' house. All the kids hang out. And then we go back to our house mid-afternoon on Christmas Day, and we just relax. Like, one thing about my life is growing up, my mom, who is full Italian, who has a lot of siblings, Christmas and Thanksgiving were such big holidays of cooking and so much stress, and people were like freaking out, and you have to wear your best. And I said, you know what? Whenever I have my family, one thing I don't want to do is be stressed out around the holidays. So what we do is on Christmas Day, Sarah and I come back home with the boys. We give them a few gifts, which they love their gifts this year, which is great. And then we always order Chinese food for dinner every Christmas.
Ooh.
And then my Christmas movie that we watch, I think is the best Christmas movie, frankly.
Oh, really? What's that?
Yeah, Jingle All the Way.
Oh, I do love Jingle All the Way.
It's turbo time, baby. I mean, it's such a great
up?
movie.
I haven't watched it in a while.
You know what? You know who holds up? Sinbad. Sinbad's lines in that movie are hilarious. He has some moments where you're like, he really said that in a kid's movie? Like, it goes over most people's heads. But, oh my gosh, the movie is so good. It's so funny. It's an hour and a half. It's a great holiday movie. So since I've been married to Sarah, I make her watch that movie. That's my one ask, is that we're going to watch Jingle All the Way. So we watched it last night. It was phenomenal. So that's what we do for Christmas. It's a way to kind of, see family, have that time for sure, but also kind of get our own, I guess, nuclear family time in. That we can just relax. No one's worried about, how messy the house is. We'll take care of it tomorrow. That's how we chill out.
That's nice. Our girls wake us up super early, and then we go open presents. And so like my one brother stayed with us, and then my mom lives right next door. So my brother and sister-in-law, niece and nephew stayed with her. So we had like our own like quiet time in the morning, or quieter time, and then we all joined forces. Oh, but the thing that I'm really excited about,
tell me,
is we had a cat show up to our house for Christmas. To be fair, it came Christmas Eve. It was like in our backyard, and when I opened the door, it sprinted away into the woods. And I am a big animal lover person, and I've always wanted to have like my own feral cat that just comes around and like just loves me, and I love it, and I can feed it and do all the things. But we can't have an indoor cat because Beecher's allergic. That's why I've been wanting this feral cat situation. So anyway, I literally go in the woods. I don't have any food. I don't have any food for cats, but I just go, just me. And I see the cat like 30 yards away. And so I get down low. I put my hand out and I was like, "You kitty." And it came to me. And it let me pet it. And then when I walked back, it ran away and it did not follow me back. So I was like, oh, well, that's probably short-lived. But then he showed back up on Christmas, and he stayed at our house like all day, and we would go in and out. We would just pet this cat, and then he'd go away for a little bit, and then he'd come back, and he would literally start showing up at our back door, just like peering through the window, like, "Are you going to come out and say hi?" So I'm really excited.
Gee, April, I'm really happy that for Christmas you got a feral cat. That makes me really happy for you.
Thank you. I sense the sarcasm,
no,
but I genuinely
no sarcasm.
am
I am my heart to yours. No. I am. It's a Christmas miracle, one could say. So I'm really happy that you have this cat. I've been to your house. I know what woods you're talking about. I'm picturing you in those woods, Christmas Eve. It's freezing, or maybe it's colder out there. I don't know. And you're just down there. Here, kitty. Now, were you doing the? Were you doing that too? Okay.
Like the little kissy noise.
Little kissy noises. Wow.
Yeah, it worked.
Do you tell your kids about Santa Claus? What is the rule? Now that we've deconstructed, is it a sin still to tell your kids that Santa Claus is real because you're lying to your children? I grew up in a household that did not. They were very clear, my parents, from the beginning. Santa Claus is not a real thing. We don't celebrate Santa Claus. He's not giving you gifts. And I ruined many of my friends' childhoods because I didn't know better.
I didn't want my kids to be the ruiner of other kids.
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
Yeah. So and actually it was another kid that ruined it for me when I was a kid. So my parents, they let us believe in Santa, but then they were always like, Santa always just only gave us stockings. So like any bigger gifts were from my parents, which was really Jesus, because Jesus gives us everything. So we would always get this big Devo, like devotional, before we'd open presents about how we need to be thankful that everything comes from Jesus, and Santa Claus is part of it, but he doesn't really count because Jesus made Santa. So really we should be thanking Jesus type of situation. You know what? As I'm about to say this, I need to make sure my children are not nearby. Beecher?
Sounds quiet.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't want this to be how they find out.
No.
So me and Beecher, who knows? Like, we're making this stuff up. I was like, Is it bad to be doing this? Here's the thing. We decided they kind of already have a built-in belief of Santa just from Christmas movies and like the world, everyone's talking about Santa Claus. So we just decided we'll never lie to them. Like if they come straight up and ask, we'll tell them the truth. But like we'll say things like, if they mention like, oh my gosh, what if I want Santa to bring me this? We're like, oh, maybe he will. Like, you know what I mean? Like we don't say anything that's necessarily super affirmative one way or the other. We just kind of ask them questions. But it's really funny. A couple years ago when my oldest was 6, we also do Elf on the Shelf. But we don't do it in like you better be good or he's going to report you. It's literally just like, it's our elf that comes and shows up every year and he just gets to spend Christmas with us and he goes back to the North Pole to just tell Santa how good you are. Like we don't even mention I had enough health threats to know that's not fun.
True that.
But my oldest a couple years ago, she was like, Mommy, I need to tell you, I want to ask you something or tell you something, but I cannot do it in the house. We need to go outside. I was like, okay. So we like go in the garage. I was like, what's it? She goes, well, she was so distraught. She's like, Mommy, I don't believe that Santa is real, but I didn't want to say it in front of Cheeks because it would upset him.
Oh my goodness.
And Cheeks is our elf on the shelf. And I was like, oh, that's so cute. That like, you don't believe in Santa, but Cheeks is real. Like I was like, yeah, Cheeks would be pretty mad. Like, man, the boss I thought I had, he was making me do all this, isn't even real.
Jeez.
So anyway, do y'all do Santa with your kids?
I don't know. I mean, we're kind of ambivalent about it. We're not going to be like Santa's not real, but we're not also like, hey, you better be good because Santa's bringing you gifts. But also our kids are. I mean, they're 4 and 2, so they're kind of getting there. Yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth these days. I think it's fun to participate in the whole Santa thing. I don't know. I'm definitely not really as hard. And to be fair, my parents, we all laugh about it now. My parents know they were kind of over the top with it. So it's not like, they get all offended about Santa Claus or something like that now. But yeah, I mean, as like you said, we're kind of figuring this out as parents. And I'm just kind of like, we've deconstructed, but obviously we're very much still Christian. And the Santa thing, and I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth. The other thing I've been thinking about too with these holidays is I'm kind of in this place with like my deconstruction, or I call it renegotiation of faith, where I kind of am. I think I'm not sure how people out there feel, but I kind of went through this phase where like I was so angry at like everything evangelical and church for good reason, that I was like, I don't want to read the Christmas story. I'm over reading like these, the story, the birth of Jesus.
You were in the angry phase.
Yeah. I don't even know if it's real or not. Like, who knows if these stories are true? And again, completely understand if people are still there. Like, this is not a matter of.
Oh, I was there for a while.
Yeah. And it's not a matter of one position is more enlightened than the other. All right. That's not what this is. But I was there for a while. And now, especially as I think about the rise of Christian nationalism and just the fact that we are still so Jesus-like, I'm like, no, I actually want to get back into what the meaning of Christmas is for Christians all around the world. I don't want evangelicalism to rob me of a very rich tradition of celebrating the incarnation, right? The belief that God takes human flesh not as the emperor or as Caesar or as a billionaire who poops in gold toilets, but as a baby to a poor family fleeing really persecution in the beginning, at least, and so I don't know, I'm kind of back in that cycle where I'm trying to get back into realizing that my faith still shapes so much of what I believe and who I am, and not letting really terrible, empty evangelical theology rob me of the richness of the theological realities that the Christmas story represents for me as a Christian. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I think we all go through that kind of angry phase where almost like burn it all down. I don't want anything to do with it. It's caused so much harm. And to that part where you're like, no, like there's some really beautiful things about this that I love because I've always loved it. And, I think when you hear people day after day after day tell you you're not a real Christian, like you can't do this, like you're a heretic, like it does get into your psyche at some point where you're like, oh, okay, well maybe that's not for me. I'm like, no, but it is. It is for me, and you can't take it away from me.
Well, and we have to parse out the difference between white evangelical fundamentalism and Christianity. Like, yes, you can have Christianity without white evangelical fundamentalism. You know what I mean? They are separate things. And so for me, at least, it's more about, I'm not going to let them take my faith away from me, because the faith I want is a more deep and rich and thoughtful tradition than what this shallow theology preaches that actually reinforces empire instead of critiquing it. So, for me, as I I'm not going to say come back around. That isn't the right wording. As I continue to evolve, I guess I could say, I am more committed than ever to the way of Jesus. And I'm just not going to let this hyper-commercialized evangelical thing take away what is one of the most beautiful theological teachings and realities for the Christian of the incarnation that we celebrate on Christmas. It is the ultimate middle finger to Christian nationalism and to empire, right? Because this is a common evangelical belief, but it's true. The followers of Jesus and many Jewish people at the time were looking for a Messiah to overthrow Rome. That's what they wanted. They wanted someone to overthrow, to take power, yada, yada, yada. Now, the context is very different here, but Christian nationalists have the same root ideal, even though they're the ones on top all the time. They're never underneath the boot, right? And Christian nationalism wants the same thing. They're looking for a Messiah that will give them permission to really rule the empire as a quote-unquote Christian nation. And what's God's answer to that? He comes in the form of a baby to an unsheltered family fleeing religious persecution, and also, by the way, who was not a citizen of Rome. Jesus was not a citizen of Rome, period.
Oh,
bingo. I'm just saying, like, there's so many realities in that story that point to a deeper truth of what God is like that completely flies in the face of what Christian nationalism and many white evangelicals teach us. So anyway, that was just kind of an out loud thought that I've been working through. But yeah, man, I'm back in. Like, you will not take this away from me because you gave me a really twisted, messed up version of it.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen to all of that.
Thank you. I also have another big announcement to make, and then we're going to get into some of our stories here. April, you and I have been talking.
We have
been talking, and I should have teased this more, but whatever. This is a pretty bombshell announcement. There are some big changes happening with the new Evangelicals in a lot of ways next year in 2025, which, by the way, if you can support our work as a nonprofit, please consider donating. That's how we do all of this stuff. We're trying to raise $30,000 by the end of the year. We only need $9,000 more to make that goal, okay? And this helps all of this. So, April, you and I have found a lot of success in these weekly recaps. I mean, it's one of our most listened to podcast episodes every week. It's one of our most watched segments on YouTube, etc. And you and I have been talking behind the scenes, and essentially, TNE, the organization, has offered you a contract to join me to spin off this weekly recap into its own show entirely, both on YouTube and podcast, underneath the New Evangelicals media umbrella. Now, we're working through the details. We're working through what we're going to call it, what the format's going to be. But I am very ecstatic to make this happen because for the past couple of months, I've been thinking about where does this content go versus what we do on the Monday episodes of the podcast, because they're very different. And this feels a little more political, a little more pop culture, a little more lighthearted, and some of our other topics are more theological. They're more, they're just we bring on scholars, or we're talking about church abuse. And I think having our own show hopefully the goal is to do 2 episodes a week where we're able to cover the news a little more often and also offer things from a, maybe we can call it more leftist Christian perspective, and throw some humor in there and do some more banter and just kind of make it more of almost like a morning show. I'm super pumped to make that happen with you. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited too. We still have to figure out the name. We're working on it.
Yep.
And other things, but yeah.
I mean, maybe we can crowdsource it, because all we got right now is the Tim and April show, but that feels too vague. It doesn't feel, it's not clever enough, I think. So
yeah, one day.
But I'm pumped. It's going to be great. I think it's going to be really good for the audience to give them kind of a little more diversity in different segments. So if people want more theology, they can tune into the podcast. If they want more of the commentary on theology and politics and culture as they kind of intersect, you can find us as we do it twice a week. So yay!
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I wanted to say before we get into because you were just at Turning Point at America Fest, and like, God bless you.
I was
doing that. I just want to say my favorite thing that's happened out of that is, I don't know if you've seen the discourse, not just online, but I've even seen it in the news too. People are now referring to Elon Musk as President-elect Elon Musk and Vice President Trump, or, whatever they say, that basically Elon Musk is the real president and Trump is just a puppet. Yeah. And I had this theory that was like, oh my gosh, and a lot of people have too. We just need to keep calling Elon Musk the president, and that's going to drive Trump so wild that he'll get rid of Elon Musk, because, they both have egos the size of the earth, so that's not going to fly. And it cracked me up because Trump was at America Fest and addressed it in his speech and was like, just to clear the air, I am the president-elect, not Elon.
Right.
It's like, Elon's a great guy, but he's not president.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm like, we need to keep that up, because I do think that's going to, because I think we've talked about this. I think the main way we survive the next 4 years, or that democracy survives the next 4 years, is there has to be so much chaos that it slows down, the fascism that they want to put out there. So one way I'm going to do that is by referring to Elon Musk as the president. No,
I'm all about it. And, I've been thinking about, this is really what we're doing is the rebellion. This is the rebellion, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Where people are funding, they're watching, they're listening to the underside, really, because So, okay, let me back up. Yes, last week I was at Turning Point USA's America Fest. This was my 3rd year in a row going to this event. 20,000 people were there. There's probably 50 or 60 speakers over the 3 days. Everyone from your Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro types all the way up to Matt Gaetz, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. And it's a Christian nationalist event. There's no way around it. It's a very clear indication of what happens when you have these right-wing political views enforced by a very conservative evangelical theology of how you read the Bible. And I'm sitting in this space, massive production. The opening night, they have 3 major bumper videos that are just so well produced, that tell the story of how Turning Point really helped make America great again by helping Trump get elected. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, this is it. Like as a Christian here, I'm in the minority position.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the minority position at this event. I'm on the underside because I don't have the power that Charlie Kirk has. I don't have the power that a lot of these pastors have, etc. And I think we have to just kind of realize that we're going to be on the underside of this conversation for a good amount of time as Christians. Now, there, of course, are mainline Protestants that are fighting this work too. It's not just us or other people doing the work as Christians. But when it comes to the general white Christian vote, broadly speaking, most of them are big Trump supporters, even in mainline and Catholic spaces. So, yeah, we got a lot of work to do. Turning Point USA's America Fest was really interesting. And the hardest part is to kind of capture all the different threads and then kind of, communicate them to the audience. But a couple.
So can I ask, as an overarching thing, were they celebrating? Were they happy?
Yes, they were happy, but also but don't get too comfortable. We have a lot of work to do. And also there was a lot of talk about never giving up power again. Like this needs to be a permanent thing. We can never go back to letting our enemies take back the country. There was a lot of talk about how God truly saved America by giving us Trump. Charlie Kirk's opening speech, which we're going to cover in a future video, completely, was very clear that, like, God's hand was on Trump as he got elected. So a lot of themes of the savior of America was given to us by God in Trump. A lot of talk in making America healthy again. This is going to be a huge push. I think that we're going to see that, again, there is some common ground here, right? Like, yes, we don't want high fructose corn syrup in our foods. I agree. We don't want sugar in our foods. I agree. Also, fluoride is helpful in the water. Also, vaccines do save lives. So like there is this agreement, then it kind of goes, it just separates, right? And maybe one of the themes I'll just recap with everyone here that I've been thinking about a lot is this, man, it's so effective. There's this view that somehow this is a grassroots movement. Like, oh, because like one of the slogans was, "We the people run this country." And in my head, I'm like, no, the billionaires that you just helped elect and get put into positions of power run the country. I mean, look, Turning Point USA is funded in part by billionaires. They are not a grassroots movement. They have grassroots supporters. I mean, they claim to have over 300,000 grassroots donations. But in 2021, 2022, half of their yearly funding came from 10 people.
Wow.
Now, billionaires do not fund organizations that are going to advocate for policies and things that go against their own interest.
Correct.
Okay? And so when you have billionaires funding massive organizations like Turning Point, right, there's a vested interest in maintaining systems that keep benefiting them. And it was really interesting because obviously one of the clearest examples of this is Elon Musk, the world's richest man, being at the right hand of Trump, no pun intended. And I asked a lot of people this because here's the thing. I've been to America Fest for 3 years. I'm a good faith actor. I don't go there undercover. I tell all the event organizers I'm coming. I shake their hands. Like, I talk to them. And that gets me to a place where I can ask people, including many popular influencers in that space, real questions to get real answers, right? Because I'm not undercover. And so I asked several people. I asked pastors. I asked influencers, folks who were just there attending the event. Hey, here's how I phrased the question. I would say, hey, help me understand what I'm missing, right? Trump ran on populist ideas of, like, the people, and we have to get the country back to the people. And I to a degree, I totally get that, by the way. And then Trump brings in Elon Musk to be like his right-hand guy, who's the world's richest man. And you don't become a billionaire by building systems and companies that pay their workers fair wages. You become a billionaire by extracting the most amount of labor for the least amount of pay. So why do you think that Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy or these other billionaires are really going to actually drain the swamp? That's how I would ask the question. And I would say I'm asking in genuinely good faith because I just don't see it. I think that people like Elon have every incentive to continue to rig the system in their favor, because one of the common pieces of agreement I found talking to people was that we both agreed we don't want corporations and billion, or we don't want people who run these huge corporations in bed with the government making rules that hurt small businesses and the common folk. I'm like, I agree. I so agree with you. So Elon Musk, what do we do with that? And the answer I got, the general theme was, yeah, I don't know. I trust him. I think he's going to do right by the people. Yeah, maybe I'm a little concerned, but I think Trump is going to rein him in. And in my head, I'm like, you have been played like a fiddle. You have been played like a fiddle if you really think that people like Elon Musk and Trump give a flying shit about you making more money or getting affordable healthcare done. They don't. They do not. These systems, these organizations are designed to keep the ultra wealthy at the top and to continue extracting more money from the middle and lower class. And the data bears this out. You can look from when Reagan got into office and deregulated stuff up to now. You can see the wealth gap has exploded. For some reason, that is like, no one in that camp that I talked to saw that as a problem. And I'm thinking, this is not a populist movement then. This is a wolf in sheep's clothing. It's actually funded by billionaires to have people vote against their own interests. And one more thing I'll say about this, kind of, again, just recapping my time. They had one session about unions and the blue collar worker. I'm thinking, great, I'm going to go to that one. I want to hear what is the solution these folks have to getting many blue collar workers who voted for Trump access to fair wages, right? Because again, we want people who work hard, and most Americans do, to be able to make an honest living, provide a roof over their head, take care of their, I mean, we all want this. This is pro-family. And the session was a group that essentially is a union busting group. What they say is they are a right to work organization, meaning people have the option of opting in or opting out of unions. And the whole talk was very much sided towards why, hey, unions are really corrupt and really bad, which, by the way, there definitely is examples of corrupt unions. I'm not saying that isn't the case, but there was nothing for the actual worker. Union busting always benefits your Amazons, your Starbucks, your Apples. Mm-hmm. That's why they fight so hard against it, right? Because it actually it forces them to maybe pay more, give more concessions than they want to. So it was very interesting being there, watching this happen in real time, and be like, wow, you really are voting against your own interests, and you think that Trump is draining the swamp, when in reality, he's actually building the swamp up more than ever, arguably. So it was very interesting being there.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting too because historically Republicans have always been the party, and especially like when I was in it, about cutting the deficit and getting rid of debt and being like the party of like the economic plan of like, we need to get the government under control, stop going into debt, all that. And like Trump's first presidency added more debt than Obama. And then like the budget bill that they just passed, I mean, they took out pediatric research for pediatric cancer. Anyway, but it's still like, I want to say it was like $5 trillion more in debt. I don't know. I'll have to fact check that later. But regardless, they're making all of these cuts, but they're not actually cutting the deficit. They're cutting programs that actually help people, like talking about getting rid of the VA.
Right.
Like, and those are programs that actually help the people that Republicans claim that they are about. And when I was Republican, I thought the same thing. I actually looked at Democrats as being the elitist, the ones that weren't for the people. And I was like, no, Republicans are for the people. But when you're in that world, you just already have to hold a lot of cognitive dissonance of like, we're the pro-life party, but only when it comes to the unborn, and literally not about anything else, not about guns, not about immigration, not about wars overseas. Like, so you automatically hold all that cognitive dissonance. So I wonder if it's just easy to just hold more when saying, yeah, we're the party of the people, but we're going to elect all these billionaires that actually don't care about us.
Here's what I will say on top of that. What they're doing is they're exploiting a real problem in the Democratic Party, right? Because there definitely is a sense of elitism in any of these establishment types. I mean, you can find that in your Republicans and also in your Democrats. I mean, we just saw, what was it? Was it Nancy Pelosi that helped tip the scales to get AOC off of a committee or something like to that effect?
Boo.
It was
Boo on that.
Well, I'm just saying, like, and some people might get mad at me for saying this, but I think we have to be honest here. And the reality is that we need a populist leftist movement, okay? We need people who will say, sorry, I don't like career politicians, period. We need people who are going to actually care about the working class and the lower class, right? And who are actually going to take these things seriously, and who won't be bought off by corporations or other big donors to, again, vote against the interests of the working class.
You could argue that Bernie was that candidate, and then Democrats pushed him out in 2016.
You absolutely could. Now, I was at the DNC. So I've been there. I will say there was much more talk. I mean, it was all over the place about supporting strong unions, much more talk about fighting for the middle class. So at least start talking about it. I don't want to make it seem like it's two sides of the same coin. There is a difference. But also, Democrats have had supermajorities, okay? Democrats have had power. We still don't have affordable health care in this country. We've been talking about it since the 80s. This is not like some new ideal. So I do think that we have to be honest about how this actually works, because there are problems. There are things that happen that Democrats maybe advocate for or do on the establishment level that don't do great things for people. And then Republicans, mainly now the far right or the right wing, will exploit that to convince people, no, come to our side. We care about you. Look, we have an outsider like Trump who's shaking up the status quo. That's true. He is an outsider. He is shaking up the status quo. for his billionaire friends. That's the problem. That is the problem. So I think that we have a lot of work to do this year, April, especially as we develop our own show, of how we kind of unpack this both and of, look, one of the benefits of us is that we are not Democrat sycophants. We were not raised in that party. We're not like, oh my gosh, only Democrats can save us. That's not how we view this at all. However, we also realize the major threat to our neighbors and democracy that is the right wing, because you and I grew up in the theological realities that are shaping that party. So we have a pretty unique outlook, I think, on this. And I think we have a lot to offer over the next year as we kind of navigate, what do we do? Because look, FedEx and Google, they also donate to Democratic candidates. They also donate a lot of money to those people. And we have to just be aware that big money controls our politics on both sides in very different ways, but it does. And we have to do something about it no matter what, because I don't want billionaires shaping our politics. It only benefits them ultimately.
I think too, when you say a word so often, it kind of loses its power or meaning. Like I don't know if people really. There's a video, we should get it, not for today, but there is a video on TikTok. It was by an economic professor who used rice to show.
Oh, we showed it last week, didn't we?
Oh, did we? Did you show it
2 weeks ago?
Yes. Okay,
yeah,
so
we
it was
shared
you.
It. Like,
yeah,
this is
but
how
when
much $100,000 is, $1 million is.
Yes. Okay, so it was you. It was us. Okay. But yeah, when you actually look at how much $1 billion is compared to 100 million or $1 million, which is already an insane amount of money for your average, like for me, for your average American person. But like when you go to $1 billion and then $100 billion, it like nobody needs that much money. Like you don't need that much. Like
Yes.
They could live 500 years and never spend that much money.
The Bible has a word for this: greed.
Yeah.
And the Bible says that the greedy do not inherit the kingdom. I'm just saying, like, and this is where I think we have to reclaim some of this language. Be like, no, actually no. James 5 does have a word to say to billionaires. Woe to you.
Yeah.
Woe to you, because the day of judgment is coming, right? And so I'm with you, April, 100%. Like it really, it is, it's mind-numbing to think about how much wealth is out there. There's plenty for everyone. We can all do it. But because of greedy people building exploitive systems that fund propaganda, we are here. I had a pastor at America Fest. I will not say his name. I was arguing with him pretty intensely for about 30 minutes on the floor. We had a small crowd around us.
Did you know him before?
Yes, we have gone back and forth online. He's very bombastic. All I'll say is that he's from Australia, and he was speaking at this event. So if people just look it up, they can find out who it is. He said to me, because I brought this whole thing up, I said, do you have a biblical worldview? Yes. Okay, well, James 5. No, that's not what it means. It's a hard issue. Okay, now we're reinterpreting the scripture, is pretty much what I said. Then he goes, hey, there are greedy poor people out there. You can be poor and be greedy. I'm like, what? What? The whole point of greed is that you have more than you need and you need more. A poor person does not have enough to survive. That's what makes them poor. It is literally impossible for a poor person to be greedy. They are just trying to survive.
Yeah.
It's like the propaganda is, this is a pastor who would tell you that he's standing on biblical truth. Like, what Bible are we reading, dude? What Bible, please?
It reminds me, did you ever watch the show Succession on HBO?
I never watched it, but I've heard about it.
Okay, so it basically mirrors the Fox News Rupert Murdoch dynasty sort of thing. It's about him wanting to pass down to his kids. Anyway, they're all multi-millionaires. The father's probably a billionaire. I don't know. They might all be billionaires, but they're very, very wealthy is the point. And there was this one scene that has just stuck with me because it was so funny. And anyway, they're doing this giveaway, like to be nice. And they gave away $50,000 to some random family that won a thing. And so the family comes in and they're so excited that they won $50,000, which to the family was like, or the Fox News people, it was called Waystar in the show. The Waystar people, they were like, $50,000 is like 5 cents to them. Like it was nothing. And one of the main characters looked at the family that was so excited for $50,000 and was like, oh my gosh, man, poor people are obsessed with money. Like made that comment. It's like,
right.
Because we don't have the money. Like you need money to survive. It's like people are making decisions for the country who have never had to make a decision based on whether or not they could afford something, who have never had to decide whether or not to put their kids in the dance program that they really want to be in or not, because that might take money out of their groceries and they need food. Like, and when you have people who have never struggled with the need for money, who have just always had, like, you're automatically going to be disconnected from the realities of the majority of people.
100%. And that's why we're going to beat this drum all damn year, because it is unacceptable that the party or the people, the Christians who call themselves pro-life and pro-family, consistently vote against policies that would actually help said people. It's like, I just saw a tweet, and it was like, tell me how pro-life people don't care about the family. We just gave this person, this woman, a year's supply of baby materials. I'm like, okay, how about we go a little bit deeper and think about what kind of system have we built where this is needed? What kind of system have we built where GoFundMes are the norm to raise money to cover people's medical expenses? That should not be the norm. That shouldn't be the norm, especially in a country, right, that has so much wealth. Like, we have the most out of anywhere in the world because we pillaged a lot of it, but we do, okay? And we shouldn't need a place where you have to ask your friends to give $10, hoping that your GoFundMe gets picked up so you can pay for your chemo treatment. That's a real thing for a lot of people. It is unjust. And to have these Christian nationalists really tell me that they care about families and people and their neighbors only to care, and I swear, this is the last thing I'll say about Turning Point America Fest, and we'll move on. The big focus, one of the big themes was trans people.
Of course.
They're transing your kids. They're transing your kids. They're coming for the kids. This demonic ideology. Trans people are like 1% of the population. Trans kids are even more of a rarity. And you would think, April, being at this event, that there were people out there, these evil doctors who like had factories of kidnapping children and quote unquote transing them. If that's not even a word,
so
but you would
stupid.
think this is so like, you would think it was like a pandemic with the way they talked about it. They literally, what does the Bible say? They swallow, what is it? They swallow a gnat I'm going to butcher it. Dang. This would have hit a lot harder if I could say it.
The plank in there.
You swallow a gnat. You swallow a gnat. What is it? Swallow a gnat. Bible verse. Oh, you blind guides, you strain out a gnat but swallow a camel.
Yeah.
There it is.
It's easier to put a camel through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich person to go to heaven. Yeah. A lot of camel analogies.
It's so clear how this stuff works. You focus on a marginalized outgroup. You make them public enemy number one to maintain your status and your privilege. But in this case, they're doing it in the name of God.
Yeah.
Anyway, so friends, there's more to come. I'm working on a huge recap like I did last year. There's so much to cover. We're working on it. Probably look forward to it mid-January by the time all is said and done. But yeah, that's just a small glimpse of my time at America Fest. I walked about 15 miles in 3 days. It was good for sure, but it was intense. So, yeah, it was something else. So, do you want to get into
heavy when you're there though? Like, do you feel a heaviness?
No, I don't, because I'm in. I almost see myself as like an anthropologist or a journalist. I'm just kind of in that mode of like, okay, just soak it in. What I do, it probably sounds psychotic, but I just walk in the same circle for like 5 hours. Like I'll walk the same floor over and over. Then I'll go into the other hall and I'll walk that over and over just to let it soak into my bones so I can really capture the energy and the feeling. That way when I'm writing the script, I can recall, oh yeah, right, I saw this, I saw that. So I'm kind of in that headspace, and then when I get home, I'll kind of think about the impact of what I just saw and who it actually hurts the most. But when I'm there, I just try and be as present as possible. I try and walk as much as possible. I try and look for any random connection I can make that wasn't planned. That's a huge part of this, is just looking for the random, I just heard this, or I overheard this conversation, or, I met this person randomly. I look for a lot of those things. That kind of helps me get my finger on the pulse. So.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the flat earth thing?
Yes. This might be my favorite story of the year.
This actually is a good story. Go ahead, April.
Okay, so basically a group of flat earthers in a trip that was organized by some pastor that just wanted to put the flat earth debate to rest.
Right.
Which it's interesting because there's a lot of there's a growing movement of flat earthers within Christianity. Because they used a literal interpretation of some of the scripture, like four corners of the earth. Basically, that scripture describes a flat earth, and scripture was written by God. In their mind, anyway, that the earth is flat, and no amount of science could disprove that. So
that's right.
So it's kind of like a dome, like they think there's like a kind of a dome around it, and that the sun still rises and sets.
I actually follow this pretty closely in my spare time.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So flat earthers essentially, I mean, I can pull it up here, so I'll show you.
Yeah, they've got graphs.
Yeah, so a flat earth model looks like this. Okay, here's a good example of it here. Pull this up. Okay, so if you can see this. So a flat earth model looks like this, that it says the earth is flat. The Antarctica is actually an ice wall around the outer rim, and the sun just circles. It just goes in a circle year round, and that's the earth that we live on. That's what this is. Okay, now obviously scientists and most people don't believe this for maybe we can say literally a million plus reasons, but there is a pretty a fundamentalist type group of people out there, including some pretty big YouTubers who make a lot of money and have a lot of clout in their spaces defending this flat earth model. Okay, and they have all kinds of arguments, and if you look it up, you can find all kinds of arguments for it. So this has been an ongoing thing for quite some time. And the big thing that a lot of flat earthers say is, look, I can be persuaded. I just need the right evidence. I need proof that the earth is not flat. Okay? And one of the biggest pieces of debate is, does the sun set in Antarctica during the wintertime? Because if it sets, according to the flat earthers, then the earth is flat. But if it doesn't set, then we're obviously on the globe, okay? Because they have like the way that the Earth's circumference works. There's all this math kind of figured out, etc. So that brings us to kind of the story where I can't find it here, but essentially a pastor offered, here it is, to fly out some of the biggest flat earther proponents to Antarctica to watch a 24-hour day to see if the sun actually set. Yeah. And that's what brings us to this moment.
Yeah. So flew out like one of the biggest guys, what was his name? Jaron something. Some of the top flat earth were like literally like I was surprised because I made a video. I don't know if you remember last year, Greg Locke did a flat earth debate at his church against another pastor.
Yes.
And Greg Locke was on team the earth is not flat.
Wow.
I know. Wow. But it was so funny though, because and I watched it, the rules of the debate was that you could only argue using the Bible.
Yeah.
So
bad idea.
And I think Greg Locke actually kind of lost the debate. He also lost his temper. Through Mike told the guy to get off the stage.
No way. Greg Locke Wait, the guy who smashes Barbie houses with bats, that guy lost his temper? I don't believe it. It
was very entertaining. But yeah, so anyway, but if he just brought in science, he could have won, but they didn't use science. So anyway, but that kind of introduced me to this world because I made a video about the debate and I showed a clip of him losing his temper just because I thought it was funny. And all these flat earthers were in my comments, like came out of the woodwork and were like, you're just being a sheep. Like, and we're like putting the clown emoji about me for not believing that the earth is flat. I was like, man, the audacity to believe that the earth is flat and call me a clown. But anyway. So
by the way, I found one of the YouTube channels. This one's called Kingdom in Context. It says that they are keeping God's word in the context of his coming kingdom and coming king, Jesus the Messiah. 132,000 subscribers on YouTube, and they're a flat earther. I mean, they believe. I mean, in fact, here it is. I mean, they actually have already a response to the 24-hour Antarctic sun. I mean, so these accounts exist on YouTube. They do a lot of views, a lot of streams, and this is one example.
Yeah, like there's entirely dedicated. It's much bigger than I would have ever thought.
Right.
But anyway, so one of the guys goes live or is in he's being
Yep.
interviewed during the 24-hour sun
Yep.
and basically was very surprised that the 24-hour sun was real. So here's the clip of the guy, Will Duffy. So this is the guy who organized the event. It's called The Final Experiment. And he's interviewing Jaron. Do you remember?
Campanella.
Yeah, Jaron Campanella.
It's this guy here. From his YouTube is called Jaronism.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so play that clip.
You got it.
Now turn it over to the Flat Earthers. Who would like to go first? So obviously you all know Jaron Campanella of Jaronism, one of the most popular Flat Earth YouTube channels.
Not for long. All right, guys. Sometimes you are wrong in life. And I thought that there was no 24-hour sun. In fact, I was pretty sure of it. But I respect Will Duffy for being a stand-up guy, at least in the way that he kept saying it was true. I kept saying it wasn't. He said, "Do you want to go? I'll take you." And he brought me here, and it's a fact. The sun does circle you in the south. So what does that mean? You guys are going to have to figure that out yourself. Don't listen to my beliefs or my opinion. It shouldn't matter to you. But at least you should be able to accept that the sun does exactly what these guys said as far as circles the southern continent. So that's about it. I realize that I'll be called a shill for just saying that. And you know what? If you're a shill for being honest, so be it. I honestly believe there was no 24-hour sun. I honestly now believe there is. That's it. If you want to call me a shill, so be it. I'll live to see another day, and at least I know that I got to see it. And I just want to say thanks to Will through everything. You've been at least kind to me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the trip. If you guys want to, my whole master plan worked for getting a free trip out here and to, but no, it's amazing. I can't even tell you. Flying in was the best thing I've ever seen. So looking around, best thing I've ever seen. So, how could I give him a hard time for bringing me down here? $35,000 trip. It's been incredible. It will continue to be incredible. We've got some tracking mounts swinging around, seeing the sun. What does it mean? You have to figure it out. To me, it means that the AE map no longer works, but that doesn't mean that I'm right. It means that it could work. You'll have to figure out how, because I've tried and I struggle with it. The other thing is a 24-hour moon. If that happens, you got another thing we got to worry about. So it seems like the moon does circle here as well. So you start thinking about that as well. It doesn't mean that AE map is over, flat Earth is over. Maybe somebody's got the answer. I don't have that answer right now. So just want to say thanks again. Appreciate it. Thanks, brother.
Can I offer one thought before you go, before I lose this thought? This is actually a great example of presuppositional apologetics versus like a more scientific approach to things, right? Because so this guy, Jaron, he's representing a group of people that have an assumption that the earth is flat. Here's the model that we concocted. Now we have to take any data we see and contort it to fit into this flat earth model. Now, I want to give some props to Jaron. It is not easy to go on camera when your whole life's work is around one idea and admit that you are wrong, right? I mean, that I don't want to shame him for that. I don't want to humiliate him for that. I want to give him props for that. That's amazing. He did say a few things like, hey, maybe the map could still work. That's up to you to figure out, right? But props to you, dude, for going on your live stream to your audience and saying, hey, guys, I was wrong. I'm looking at what's right in front of me. The sun does not set. These guys are saying exactly what it said it would do. All right, props to him for doing that. But this is what happens when you have a presuppositional approach of the world must function like this. So now I find any kind of data I can to squeeze into that. This is why I left the idea of biblical inerrancy, because I realized after reading more widely than what I was given that, it's a presupposition that the Bible is inerrant. And these inerrantists will take data and they'll either ignore certain parts or they will twist other parts to fit into the presupposition that the Bible is inerrant. Instead of just letting the data speak for itself regarding, as Pete Enns would say, this is the Bible we have, whether we like it or not. And so I'm not saying that biblical inerrantists are as maybe anti-intellectual as a flat earther is, necessarily, but a lot of the same ingredients of what animates these two worldviews, there's a lot of similarities because they are taking already held belief and saying, well, no data will convince me otherwise. Instead, I have to reinterpret the data to fit into that belief. So I wanted to kind of call that out because it's an important connection to make, in my opinion.
Well, and there's a direct connection because a lot of people who are believe in biblical inerrancy are also flat earthers because of the way that they read the scriptures that make them think that the Bible is saying that the earth is flat.
Do you think a lot of them are, honestly? Did you meet a lot in your churches?
I knew a couple, but I'm talking more recently.
Oh, yeah.
A good chunk of the flat earthers that I see are also very big Christians.
No, for sure. 100%.
And use scripture. And literally, like when I saw the arguments in my comments, they were using scripture to argue whether or not the earth was flat.
Right.
And not science.
I mean, you could argue there. Oh, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
I accidentally muted myself. But the argument.
That wasn't me.
I know. Rude. No, the argument that they're using, like, here's the scripture. I don't remember what it was. Who sits above the circle of the earth. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There are verses where they interpret that to mean that the earth is flat. And when they would use those scriptures and someone would say, that's not what that meant, or like times are changed, or they didn't know anything back then, they will use the argument that the Bible is inerrant to justify their interpretation of those scriptures. So they do go hand in hand.
You could argue that they are just being more consistent with a modern evangelical view of inerrancy than the more common Al Mohler types, right? Because you're right, the Bible does say that. Jesus does say, even until the ends of the earth.
Right.
The ends of the earth. There's an end to it instead of a circle, right? So I would agree with you. I would totally agree, April, that those people are just being more consistent with that outlook than maybe their counterparts. And I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not here. We try and be careful not to shame people, for being maybe more anti-intellectual. I don't think it convinces them to think about things differently. But I would maybe strongly suggest, why are you holding to those presuppositions? And do you see where they can easily lead if taken to their logical conclusion? You end up in a space where you're like, well, the earth is flat. I don't care how much data or science we have. That's propaganda. That's the deep state. That's a lie. NASA hates you, yada, yada, yada. And you look very foolish to people who are like, dude, we've been up to outer space. Like, we know what the earth looks like. It is actually round. And they go, no, the Bible is clear. And that's my source of all objective truth. It doesn't work long term. It's unsustainable.
I've literally seen, and then they go on to suspect anyone who is pushing the big lie that the earth is a sphere, that they're satanic. Like, I've literally seen memes where they move around the letters of NASA and then add an N and then spell, or a T, and it spells Satan. But what's interesting, though, this is my one of my biggest qualms about flat earthers, and I made a video where I responded to a flat earther and I asked him this question, was why? Why is everyone lying to us? What do they get out of it? What do they get out of us believing that the earth is round and a sphere when it's actually flat? What is the purpose? Why? And they've never been able to give me an answer that I find satisfactory at all. They'll just say, like, well, we don't know. Like, that's why it's all a big secret, but they're in on it. I'm like, that's not an answer. You need to tell me why. What do they get out of lying to us about it? And every single world leader in the world is in on it. Every scientist, all the like, that is a huge conspiracy that everyone just bought in on. Why?
China, Russia, and the U.S. all hate each other until it comes to the flat earth conspiracy. Then they're all secretly shaking hands like, yeah, we're really getting one over our people, huh? I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they'll be like, well, you just don't get it because you're a clown. I'm like, that's why I'm asking. Why? Give me a good reason. I have yet to hear a good reason.
Do you want to get to our main story?
We're not to the main story? Yes.
Well, we're only an hour, and we always do this. We always say we can do this quick, under an hour, and it just happens. I'm not going to apologize. I love doing this show with you. It's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. Our audience enjoys it, but at some point, you got to deliver on the goods. If we're going to tease Matt Gaetz, we got to actually do that shit. I didn't know we teased him. Well, I mean, we're gonna title the episode something around Matt Gaetz. We have to do it.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
Obviously, yeah.
Matt Gaetz.
Yeah. Matt Gaetz. We got a lot to talk about here, April. A lot to talk about. I don't. Oh boy. Okay, let's start with the actual, just some headlines here, get people kind of acclimated. Now, Matt Gaetz, this was going around a couple of years ago that there was he was under suspicion by the, I think, DOJ for potentially committing sex trafficking crimes, including sleeping with someone underage. Now, the DOJ declined to bring charges. There's a lot of reasons that could happen. Maybe there were certain standards that couldn't be met, etc. But the House Ethics Committee decided to keep investigating. Trump picked Matt Gaetz to be the Attorney General. And people were like, wow, that's crazy, because he has no qualifications. Speaking of a meritocracy, by the way, doesn't exist for the world of Trump, but just if you're loyal to him or not. And then people were like, but also there's this House Ethics Committee report coming out that might be damning. And so then the people who are all about, protecting kids from groomers and who care about biblical values and conservative family values were like, no, let's vote not to release the report. Literally, I think every Republican in the House, besides like 2, voted against releasing the report, including Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, who, again, a good Christian man who really cares about the truth and cares about those Christian values of sexual purity. Yeah. So it turns out Trump withdrew his nomination for withdrew Matt Gaetz' nomination for AG, and the House switched.
Matt Gaetz withdrew it.
Sorry, Matt Gaetz withdrew it.
Yeah, he withdrew it himself.
You're right.
Yeah.
Trump would have taken him, but Matt Gaetz withdrew it. And then it turns out that the House Ethics Committee did release the report. And my God, according to BBC, I'm going to read straight from them here. Here's what it says. It says, the House Ethics Committee report on Donald Trump ally Matt Gaetz, released on Monday, revealed fresh details about the former congressman's alleged behavior, at least one new accusation and insights into the panel's investigation. From at least 2017 to 2020, the committee concluded that the former Florida congressman regularly paid women for, quote, engaging in sexual activity, had sex with a 17-year-old girl, used or possessed illegal drugs, accepted gifts beyond house limits, and helped a woman obtain a passport, according to the report. Okay. Okay.
Wow.
Wow.
You know what's actually really sad in
Tell
it all
me.
is when I read the report, none of it was surprising. Like, I felt like I had already read all of that.
No.
Like, we pretty much already knew most of this, I feel like.
Yes.
Just unofficially.
No, House investigators said that Gaetz paid more than $90,000 to women for sex and drugs, but created a complicated web of transactions that were hard to trace, according to the report. Quote, the committee was unable to determine the full extent to which Representative Gaetz' payments to women were compensation for engaging in sexual activity with him, according to the report. He allegedly used his friend Joel Greenberg, currently serving 11 years in prison for crimes he said he committed with Gaetz, as a frequent go-between, and logged onto Greenberg's account on seekingarrangement.com, which bills itself as a, quote, luxury dating site to interact with young women. So, and by the way, did you see, I forgot to pull it. There's a clip, I think, of a House representative talking about how Matt would show his colleagues like photos and videos all the time, and it was absolutely gross. It was like an open secret in the House. And then a couple of days later, that same guy retracted that when Gaetz got the nomination. It was like, no, everything's fine. Gaetz is an upstanding guy. So, I mean, even his colleagues knew that like this kind of stuff was happening for years. And here we are, April, again, like, it's so frustrating that these people who campaign on protecting kids from groomers and drag queen story hour, sexualizing children, are gonna get behind a guy who has good evidence to suggest that he paid a 17-year-old girl for sex, which many people would argue, and I would agree, that that's not sex. That's a different word that I'm not going to use because we're on YouTube, but it starts with an R. Maybe we can call it sexual assault. And this is the person. This is one of the people that was nominated by Trump to be in his cabinet, to be Attorney General, and someone who just spoke at Turning Point USA's America Fest, where so much of the rhetoric was around protecting kids and, these degenerate leftists and their sexual promiscuity. Matt Gaetz, according to this report, paid more than $90,000 to women for sex and drugs.
Yeah.
What world are we living in?
Matt Gaetz is a Southern Baptist.
Oh my! Of course he is.
Yep.
And this is not new.
Where is the Southern Baptist leaders calling out Matt Gaetz?
Where is it? Where is Charlie Kirk saying, "Oh my God, we had a groomer among us. I'm so sorry, everyone. Matt Gaetz should be nowhere near children." Okay. Oh my God, I'm so angry about this. So I'm not sure if you know this, but there's a story that came out of a gay couple who adopted kids and tragically pimped them out. It was a horrible story. I mean, they were found guilty, 100 years in prison, as they should. People, no matter who they are, do bad things. We all understand this, okay? Ali Stuckey, all these other right-wingers are retweeting immediate public execution. We should kill them right now. They should be executed on the spot. Literally, Ali Stuckey said that. Silent on Matt Gaetz. Silent. Not a peep. Not one damn tweet about Matt Gaetz, who, according to the House, paid a 17-year-old for sex. These folks, I need people to listen to me so carefully. These people do not care about children. They do not care about sexual promiscuity. They don't care about so-called biblical values. They use that rhetoric as a tool to promote their side for power and control and use it to demonize the outgroup that they're targeting. That's why the gay couple who did a terrible thing that did face justice and is facing 100 years in prison, was sentenced to 100 years in prison, that's why those people will call them out to be killed because they're gay, but will say nothing about the laundry list of pastors who are found guilty of sexually assaulting children, or in this case, Matt Gaetz, one of their shining stars, who paid $90,000 for all kinds of sex with women, including someone as young as 17 years old. Because it's not about the principle. It's not about the principle of the matter. It's about using this stuff as a way to maintain power and control. It is just infuriating. It is so infuriating.
But they're the party of family values.
Yeah, family values. Yeah. These are Ali Stuckey is someone who would probably look at like an ethical non-monogamous couple and be like, "Wow, those degenerates, those evil people, they're so sick." And she won't say a damn word about Matt Gaetz paying all that money to someone who could be as young as 17. Now, and to be clear, they're very different because ethical non-monogamy, and I have a lot of friends who are in that world now, is based on consent and mutuality. You might not agree with it. Okay, you might say that's not for me. You might say, hey, I don't think it's a good idea. That's fine. But these people are at least built on adults, consent, communication, honesty, transparency. Okay, what Matt Gaetz is doing, sneaking around. I think Matt Gaetz is married, by the way. I'm not sure, but I'm assuming he is. Maybe he's not.
Fact check that.
Yeah, fact check that. I could be wrong. But Matt Gaetz is paying $90,000 essentially for women. And again, someone as young as 17 years old and not a peep. Not a peep.
Yes, he is married.
Okay, he's married. He's an adulterer too. So again, he breaks all of the norms, all of the barriers that these evangelical leaders want you to think are just so important to maintain as a culture. They just don't give a shit.
His wife is 30 and he's 42.
Oof.
Just interesting. I don't know how long they've been together.
I mean, I guess, yeah, whatever.
But she's standing by him from everything I can see.
Of course she
but
is.
I just want to point out, I didn't forget. I don't know if you forgot, but back in November, when it first came out that he was the Attorney General nominee, or that Trump was appointing him that, and the rumors about the ethics report that was going to come out were circling, Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted, and I quote, she didn't want it to be released. For my Republican colleagues in the House and Senate, if we are going to release ethics reports and rip apart our own that Trump has appointed, then put it all out there for the American people to see. Yes, all the ethics reports and claims, including the one I filed, all your sexual harassment and assault claims that were secretly settled paying off victims with taxpayer money, the entire Jeffrey Epstein files, tapes, recordings, witness interviews, but not just those, there's more. Epstein wasn't/isn't the only asset. If we're going to dance, let's all dance in the sunlight.
Great.
Yeah, release them all.
If there are Democrats in the House doing this kind of shit, I want them exposed and I want them kicked out. Like, this isn't even a question for me. I don't care who they are. I don't care how much I might have liked them. If Pete Buttigieg is found to be doing this kind of shit, paying money allegedly for sex with a minor, goodbye, Pete Buttigieg. Put him in. Yeah, like prosecute. Yes, that would be wonderful. I would love a place where it wasn't the norm to be sleeping with people underage. That'd be phenomenal. I'd be all about that shit.
It is interesting, though, she only addressed her Republican colleagues in the House and Senate. So there's more. Like,
well, here's the other thing that's interesting. So I'm looking at this BBC article, right? So, couple things here. So Greenberg, this is one of his, I think this is the person who's facing 11 years in prison. What's his full name? I just said it a second ago.
So it was like Justin.
Yeah, Joel Greenberg. So Joel Greenberg, he's serving 11 years in prison for crimes he said he committed with Gaetz as a frequent go-between, and he logged on to Greenberg's accounts on seekingarrangement.com, which bills itself as a luxury dating site to interact with young women. Now, in this article, you keep going. I'll pull it up here so people can read along if they want, if they're watching this on YouTube. Oops, where am I? Okay. So it also says, this is very interesting here. So in 2021, now again, this is one of Matt Gaetz's like associates and friends. In 2021, Greenberg pleaded guilty to sex trafficking a girl. According to his plea, Greenberg paid for sex acts with a minor and introduced her to other adult men who engaged in commercial sex acts with her. Okay, so essentially, this is what we call a trafficker. You know, again, the right is obsessed with trafficking. They want to protect the kids from traffickers. Matt Gaetz's good friend, who he hung out with, was a legit trafficker. No one in that world cares that Matt Gaetz associates with human traffickers who are trafficking children, right, for sexual assault. I'm not using the R word because YouTube is very picky about that, but you get my point, right? And again, does Charlie Kirk give a shit? No. Matt Gaetz did a VIP meet and greet at AmericaFest. The VIP meet and greets include student VIPs, people who are under the age of 21 or 20, maybe even under 18. I'm not sure 100% how that works. But my point is that Matt Gaetz goes to these events. He's treated like a celebrity. Yeah. People love him. He hangs out with sex traffickers.
Was he at AmericaFest?
That's what I'm saying. He was at AmericaFest. He did a VIP meet and greet at AmericaFest. He spoke at AmericaFest on Sunday, I think right before Trump. This is where's the outrage? Where is it? Allie? Charlie? Like, where's the outrage of having someone who a House report found to have good, strong evidence to suggest that he paid money to someone as young as 17 years old for sex, and whose associate is in jail for being a pedophile? Where is it?
So I also think it's interesting too. Look above that 2 paragraphs ago. So the age of consent in Florida is 18, although a 16 or 17-year-old can legally consent to sexual conduct with a person if that person is between the ages of 16 and 23. But when Matt Gaetz slept with the 17-year-old girl, paid for her in 2017, he was 35.
I don't want to sound hyperbolic,
I do think that the R word applies
totally
here.
I mean, look, I'm just gonna say it. These people are sick.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to exaggerate. So many accusations, so often are confessions for these people. So often. Yeah. Remember Moms for Liberty? Same thing. She was found like having a threesome with her husband. And again, like look, you want to have a threesome? Like, go have a threesome. Like, I don't care. Just don't make your whole shtick about protecting kids and promoting conservative family values while you do that stuff. It looks a little hypocritical. Yeah. By the way, I don't know if people remember this. I covered it last year in our recap for AmericaFest, but the Pastor Summit that Turning Point hosted, I think 2.5 years ago, 2 years ago, one of the vendors was found guilty of soliciting a minor for sex. And he was still at that event. Rolling Stone covered this, and Charlie and that group defended it. They called it a smear campaign. I'll pull the article up so people know I'm not lying. I don't want to defame Turning Point. I want to make sure I'm being truthful here. But like this happens all the time in these spaces, all the time, and you're never gonna know because they don't talk about it. They're too busy looking for gay people or trans people or drag queen story hour and making those like the issue to think about. It's so aggravating.
It's just a distraction. They bring up, they point the finger at things they deem sinful or wrong that they're not dealing with so that people won't look at them and what they're doing.
Totally.
And they just cover it up. It's like it's all projection when they're actually and this is not, I'm not painting all Republicans this way by any means. We're just pointing out the hypocrisy of pointing a finger at Democrats, at trans people, at queer people, while completely ignoring much, much worse allegations and crimes within your own group.
Yeah. So here's the article I found. This is from May 27, 2023. I'll read a few paragraphs here. Turning Point USA CEO Charlie Kirk is cheerleading the far-right boycott of Target over the retailer's Pride collection, which included trans-friendly youth apparel and other LGBTQ positive gear, for what Kirk decries as, quote, their support for grooming kids. Yet, in delivering these fevered messages about morality and child welfare, Kirk had an odd benefactor, a man whose criminal history opens up TPUSA to charges of hypocrisy. Rolling Stone has learned that one of the TPUSA Summit's corporate sponsors, this is the Pastor Summit, by the way, is a Christian fashion company that is led by a registered sex offender, Sean Bergstrand, who served time in federal prison for attempted coercion and enticement after trying to persuade a minor female to engage in sexual activity. Okay? In a statement to Rolling Stone, TPUSA spokesman Andrew Kovac said that TPUSA Faith, quote, was not aware of this incident, but emphasized that as an exhibit sponsor, Bergstrand was not a speaker, organizer, or professing doctrine from the stage. That was their response. And then they keep on going on. Listen to this. One of the core tenets of the Christian faith is forgiveness, rooted in repentance. Oh. After discussing the issue with him, we believe it was critical to bringing him to faith, Colvett added. He doesn't hide from what happened. He instead posts his testimony online on his company website. TPUSA Faith will not toss away a repentant, decent person because of a mistake that happened over a decade before, or because a left-wing outlet wants to write a hit piece on the amazing work our team is doing. And then Colvett included a reference to Colossians 3:13, a Bible verse that reads in part, forgive as the Lord forgave you. So there you go. Hey, you know what? This guy, he's sorry that he tried to entice a minor for sex. So we took his money, let him be a sponsor at our pastor's summit, and not one pastor was outraged that we would do such a thing because we're fighting the good fight.
That is the same justification for why they keep platforming people like Mark Driscoll when there was a whole podcast takedown of how abusive he is. And now everyone's like, because they value belief. They value ideology more than any action or anything someone does.
That's right.
Which is why they'll paint you and I as heretics and blasphemous and people deserving of eternal flames because our ideologies do not line up with theirs anymore. But Matt Gaetz, they'll still defend him and allow him to come in their ranks and allow him to speak at places like Turning Point, because even though his actions are terrible and are considered sins in their beliefs, he has the same ideology, so they can platform him because they can trust him to say the right things. It's all about saying the right things and pushing the narrative and pushing the ideology, and that's literally all they care about.
Yes. Two things. One, I did see Mark Driscoll at America Fest.
Of course you did.
I'll share more details in our recap. But number two, Jesus says something that I think is applicable here. These people are whitewashed tombs. Yeah. They are, I mean, maybe this is intense, but it's the words of Jesus. I mean, sons of Satan. How else do you describe? They are sons of the adversary. These people consistently do this. They like to rile up their base and give them this perception that there is some kind of demonic force out there that is just taking over their kids' minds. And then they will defend actual men who try to entice said children for their own sick, perverted sexual pleasure and say, well, he's sorry, so it's all good. That doesn't fly. That shouldn't fly, but it does in these spaces. And this is, again, why so many of us have left this evangelical culture, because this happens in the church all the time, right? And so really, it's not a shock then, given what we've seen over and over again. Of course, it's not shocking that people would love Trump. They don't care that he's been found liable for sexual assault. It's just how it works. They don't care about the actions. They care about making sure that their ears are tickled, that they are being told what they want to hear. They don't actually want truth. They don't actually want morality. They don't actually want integrity. They just want to be told what they want to hear so that they have a justification to fuel their rage. That's what this is.
Yeah.
And Matt Gaetz is a perfect example. Literally was found by a House Ethics Committee to have paid a minor for sex. And he speaks at Turning Point USA's America Fest, full of children, by the way, because I was there, and young people. Yeah, there's infants, there's kids. There was a podcast booth where it's just these young kids. They got to be under 12 doing right-wing content. There's tons of kids at this event. There's tons of students at this
little
event.
Me.
They are, I know. I saw myself in them too. I'm just saying, though, like, we should not be tolerating this, and we should not accept this as normal.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, and this, they also point the finger that the left indoctrinates their children, but they're bringing children to places like Turning Point USA, who are demonizing all trans people, who are demonizing all queer people, all Democrats.
Yeah. And
think that just educating someone on the truth about American history is actually indoctrinating.
100%.
That's actually unindoctrinating someone.
100%. Yeah, I can't even discuss. I can't even mention how many just things that were said on the stages where I'm like, this isn't even true, not even factually correct. But that's for my own recap. That's not for the rest. That's not for this episode.
Yeah.
But just I mean, look, I don't know how else to say it to people out there. Matt Gaetz, and many like him in this party, it's not just tolerated; they're accepted. They're seen as heroes of these spaces. They're not people that you want to model your life after. Someone who pays $90,000 for sex with women, something is deeply wrong, right?
Who's married?
Who's married? And to think that Trump picks him as his AG, and Trump is someone that, again, this world loves, thinks that God has anointed, that God has blessed, that God, as Ben Shapiro said, physically moved Trump away from the bullet when he had the assassination attempt, right? I mean, this is how they see, like, God working to protect and promote Trump. Somehow this God that we're supposed to believe in and follow really has no problem with men who take advantage of women. Again, I'm using softer language only because we're on YouTube, but you know what I'm saying. And somehow this God supports men who are found liable for assaulting them, or who pay a lot of money to sleep with them, or who have friends who traffic them. This is what God is like. This is what God approves of. God approves of these kinds of people to be in charge. I want nothing to do with that God. I'm not sure about you, April, but like, get me as far the hell away from whatever God sanctions those kinds of behaviors or justifies them for a greater good. That's not a good God. That's a monster.
Or even just believing that a God would turn the head of someone who harms so many people to be president, who's a very hateful person, would save his life from a bullet, but not second graders at an elementary school.
Right. Or the bombs being dropped on children in Gaza right now, right? We've been watching a genocide happen in real time for years, and Republicans are mum on it, or worse, they're complicit in it, saying, no, wipe them all out. Again, this is not a God I want to follow. And to be clear, this is not a Jesus we find in the four gospel accounts. Like, hard stop. I'm not going to argue about the bigger picture and oftentimes complicated portrait of God in the Bible as a whole, especially in the Hebrew Bible. I get all that. We can wrestle through that stuff. I'm not even going to try and handle it here. But as far as Jesus goes for the Christian, if Jesus is God incarnate and that's our model of what we live like, you're not going to find a Jesus who celebrates bombs being dropped on children, or who celebrates men who pay young people, children, for sex.
Preach.
Call me a liberal Marxist maniac, but
I know.
My faith still matters. And I'm not going to let these shills hijack it with some kind of twisted gospel that tolerates this shit.
Honestly, though, the more that they just keep it on and keep promoting men who have assaulted women. I mean, Pete Hegseth has allegations against him. His own
mother.
Yeah. Out.
Right.
Like,
right.
Like, the more that they do that, if anything, I just feel more emboldened and more in the right. Because I feel like for so long, like when you're first kind of deconstructing and kind of leaving that world, it's very easy to feel kind of gaslit. Because everyone around you is like, no, you're going down the slippery slope. You're following Satan's path. Like, don't fall for it. And it's kind of, it can be hard to wrap your head around what's actually true and which of your thoughts are good thoughts and which of them are like that old conservative thought coming in. But the more that this stuff happens, which seems to be every single day, now, the more I'm just like, no, y'all have lost the ability to gaslight me.
Maybe we can pull, as we kind of wrap this bad boy up, we can kind of pull from our evangelical heritage, and we can just look at like, hey, let's keep things simple. Let's look at the fruit of the Spirit. Does what we're seeing line up with that? Love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness. Do we see these things embodied in a MAGA movement full of Christians? And if I don't, then maybe something's wrong. And by the way, that standard applies to our Democratic compadres as well, 100%. But evangelicalism and white Protestant Christianity has a major crisis in Christian nationalism and the far right, not in the left. That isn't really an issue for them. There are different battles that we can talk about, and we're going to talk about over the course of this year of how things are being realigned. But really, just ask yourself, if the Bible says and our faith teaches that the fruit of the Spirit leads to those things, do we see the fruit of that Spirit in this movement? And as someone who just spent 4 days at maybe the biggest rally of that movement, I can confidently say, not really.
Yeah.
Not really. And any joy that was there was because they conquered their enemies, because Trump is going to save America. You know, and so we can look at this at a very simplistic level, maybe even oversimplistic, and say, it's not there. I got to find it somewhere else, because whatever fruit this is, whatever tree is bearing this result, can't be of the Spirit.
Yeah.
Hard stop.
Well, in other news, I haven't even told you this, and I didn't plan on telling you this, but it's just funny and it's relevant and it's timely. Have you seen any of the chatter about the rapture happening in the next week or so?
Not again, April.
I'm serious.
Not again.
This one is because
I haven't, but I'm not surprised.
So have you heard about the Pope is supposedly opening 5 portals? He opened the first one yesterday. So there actually is a tradition. Yes, in the Catholic Church, there actually is a tradition where the Pope will open 5, they call...
I'm bleeding. No, I have a nosebleed.
Oh.
I
the Rapture.
I'm not sure what just happened to me. That was random.
Wow.
God, is that you? Is there a portal being opened? I'm really bleeding.
Oh, do you need to take a moment?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know what happened.
Get yourself
okay, I'll write back.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
I'm okay. I'm alive.
Okay. Maybe I opened a portal by mentioning the portals, and going through the portal was what caused the nosebleed. I feel like that's been in some kind of time travel movie, that it caused nosebleeds when you jump time. You all right there?
I think, Cassie, we're at the hour 26 mark when this happens, and you can trim some of this out, maybe keep a little bit. But yeah, I'm not sure what happened. God, is that you?
Well, I feel like there's some kind of show somewhere, I don't remember which one, but when you time jump or go through some kind of portal, you can have nosebleeds.
Oh, what is that from?
You've seen that too, right?
Yes.
I feel like that's in something. But
anyway, I'm sorry.
I'm
go
wondering
ahead.
if
portals.
Maybe
I'm
me
ready.
mentioning the portal,
yeah,
it got opened.
Say it again.
Okay, so there actually is a tradition where the Pope will open holy doors, is what they're called, but they're really just like symbolisms. They're just symbolic. But there's been these rumors going around that he's opening 5 never before opened portals, and one of them is supposedly the tomb of Lucifer, which is Satan, and that when he opens the 5th final door, that's when like the end times might happen, or I don't know. But there's some people saying that this, because I don't know, did you ever grow up hearing that the Pope was very connected to the biblical end times?
Yeah, I mean, I heard whispers of it. I didn't grow up in a super heavy Rapture household, though, so maybe not as often as most people like yourself.
Well, I remember like the 2 biggest possibilities for being the Antichrist was either the Pope or whatever Democrat was the president. So anyway, so that's just the news. So they're saying that the Rapture could happen anytime in the next couple weeks.
Look,
because of these portals.
Sell it all. Now is the time, right? Because there's portals being opened by the Pope.
Yeah. Yeah,
Maybe they're
also,
like the Doctor Strange portals, the little that little when he makes the circle
I
and new portal opens up.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I should have sent you this screenshot of one of the posts that I saw about the portal right here. This guy adds a bunch of this guy also includes the drones as part of his end times prediction with the Pope. But here, I'll just read it. It says, so Pope Francis's 88th birthday, I guess he turned 88. So 8 days after his 88th birthday, the first portal will be open. And then it also says, and UFO drones are being sighted worldwide. Is this coincidence or the deception part of something much bigger?
My gosh.
And then we bring in math. The numbers don't lie. I'm reading this. The numbers don't lie. Project Bluebeam equals 888. Beast system equals 888. Satanic ritual equals 888. I guess they're bringing in 8 days in the 88th birthday into this. Synagogue of Satan equals 888. And then 888 plus 888 equals 1776, which brings us to the false prophet, Pope Francis, equals 1776. And then it says tribulation equals 846. I don't know where they got that, but it says the signs are clear. UFOs and worldwide events are leading us into prophecy fulfillment. Stay vigilant.
It's the same headspace as your flat earthers. Like you're just you're looking for things to put together to prove that you're right. It's whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah. So anyway, there's, I guess, an unofficial prophecy of the week. I forgot to tell you about it.
Yeah, I can't wait. We have days. So, hey, this was a good episode, April. I mean, again, we said under an hour. We lied. We always lie. I mean, it's 90 minutes
we
for
should
bust
just stop
these days.
saying it.
But this is why we're going to 2 a week, because I think if we do a Monday and a Friday recap, we can cover so much in like an hour each, and people aren't like, dude, 90 minutes, which I know for some people who are traveling and driving, they love the long format. But this is the problem. When you have a wide audience, you get conflicting reports. I want shorter. I want longer. So we're working, I would just say, friends, especially if you're a YouTube aficionado, we're working on ways to give you both. I can't go into details yet, but we are aware of what you want, and we're going to do our best to give it to you, because when you are a content creator, you're at the mercy of your audience, and I want to give you what you want, which is more of me and April, which I hope is what you want. Not,
now that we say
fail.
that.
Right, yeah, right. So, well, I think that's all we got time for. What do you think, April?
It sounds great to me. Happy New Year.
Yeah. Oh, Happy New Year.
Right. We won't be back. Is the next one January?
Yeah.
This is like the time of the year where I don't know what day it is. Like, but once you're in holidays, so when we record next week, it'll already be January. So,
I'll
see you next year.
I'll see you next year. Friends,
you know what I like to do when I count down to midnight? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, go ahead.
I like to stand. I like to put my left leg up, and I just stand on my right foot, and I bring in the new year on the right foot.
Cool. That's great. Okay, really quick. We're already here. Let me just say this to the audience briefly, mainly YouTubers, if you're watching this. Honestly, this year has been our biggest growth ever in YouTube. Like, our numbers are like 600% in every category. And that's because a lot of you found us through a lot of different channels. You started subscribing and you started watching the show. So I do want to give a sincere thank you truly to all of you out there who watch the show, who watch the channel, who engage our content. We can't do this work without you guys. It's truly a privilege and an honor to do this work for a living, to show up here every week or every couple of days, making different types of content for you. So I honestly, like, it's a humbling thing to be able to do this, but I can speak, I think, for me and April when we say thank you so much for listening and for watching, because it means the world. And we're very excited for 2025. We have a lot of plans we're working on, like a new show format. It's going to be a good year, I promise.
Yeah. And if you should also start off the year on the right foot. Literally and metaphorically, speak it into fruition.
Okay, we will do that. Right foot, here we go. Goodbye.